Coming up on Main and Local, our casual roundtable conversation.
Come back.
Please.
On this week's Main and Local, we're changing things up. We're going to have a little roundtable discussion with everybody here about local, national, international topics. And, yeah.
Should we introduce ourselves?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you want to introduce yourself. I'm Erin Grant, by the way.
We're doing last names now.
Oh, wow. So much for anonymity.
Will you put my name on the... Oh.
We should wear paper bags and be the unknown newscasters.
Yeah, so we'll rock and roll. You're Erin.
I'm Sam.
I'm Tara.
And I'm Dustin. I've got headphones on because I'm monitoring sound.
Yeah, he's our production man.
Dustin's our tech man.
Yeah.
So as you can see, this is a casual conversation this week.
Yeah.
Very casual.
Right.
Very, very casual. In my living room. I've never seen so much equipment in my living room.
Yes.
So, jumping right in.
All right, so what are we going to do? Talk about
The
first?
Dune trailer.
The Dune trailer?
Did you watch it?
Yes.
Did all of you watch it?
Yes, although I have not ever seen the original Dune, so.
I haven't.
The original Dune?
Because I was afraid to confess that I hadn't been.
I've seen... It's a long movie. David Lynch directed the original Dune, and it's...
That's my hang-up. It's a long movie.
Was it like a theatrical release or made for TV?
Yeah.
It was in theaters. Kyle MacLachlan was in it.
Sting was in it, wasn't
Yeah.
he? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of V is what I was getting
Okay.
confused with, which was on
Did
television.
any of you... Are you all young enough or old enough to remember V? No.
Oh, yeah.
No clue.
Yeah.
You're not.
Dustin.
Okay.
I remember it, and I remember the remake that they made that was, I don't know if it was a miniseries.
That's what I was thinking.
Remake.
Did
Yeah.
Sci-Fi, or was that a major network
No, I thought
that
it
did
was
a
like
remake?
Fox or something.
Oh,
Oh.
okay. Anyway, that's just science fiction stuff.
Right.
I mean, Dune takes place way in the future.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Like a political sci-fi. Type,
Yeah.
You know.
It's all
setup.
about the spice.
See, I tried reading the book and I just couldn't.
Well, there's several books, I believe.
Yeah, but I tried with the first one.
Yeah.
And I got to where they moved to the planet and there was all the political dinner and all that, and I just really, really tried, but I couldn't get into
How
it.
long is that book?
Longer than I had interest.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Anyway, Dune, the new Dune has Timothy Chalamet and the I don't know what the character's name is. I'm sorry.
Gallagher, I believe.
The Kyle MacLachlan role. Zendaya
He
is
plays
in
Paul.
it.
Yeah.
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 Timothy Chalamet plays Paul.
Yeah.
The main character.
Zendaya's in it. Who else is in it?
I see
Oscar
Josh Brolin?
Isaac. Oscar Isaac's in it.
Oscar
Josh
Isaac.
Brolin.
Jason Momoa.
Yes.
It's a
Yeah.
pretty...
It's got a good cast. I
I'm not
can't
gonna
wait to see this.
I'm not going to say it's an all-star cast, but it's one of those. It's all people that you know and recognize. There's a lot of that guy or
Kinda like the
that
Love
girl.
Boat.
The production quality looked incredible.
Oh,
It would,
my
but-
goodness.
Oh yeah, it looked like
Yes.
That's probably why there's not any big, gigantic, huge stars
Now,
in it.
I don't think it actually said when it's coming out in theaters, or did it?
Well, I don't know that anybody knows when anything's coming out in theaters.
Yeah, which, by the way, they pushed Wonder Woman now back to
Saw.
Christmas.
So
That makes sense. I could see a big superhero movie coming out at
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah.
And,
But it-
theaters are still doing their thing.
Well, I just don't think I'm comfortable. Not until
Yeah, I'm the same way.
this is
Yeah.
over.
We might have some things.
especially the way people are treating it around here. Like,
Yeah.
Where they're not very serious about things. But, the Oscars are going to be very interesting this year. We can talk a little bit about the new requirements.
Oh, your
But
inclusion.
I, for one,
Yeah.
personally, hey, there's some good thunder.
Yeah.
But personally, I am very excited to see Sonic the Hedgehog win Best Picture because I think it's the only film that came out right before COVID.
Now, are we talking about the new? They want to open it up to more.
More diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Best
by
Picture nominee.
2024. Yeah.
I think so.
You have to have a woman, an LGBTQ person,
At least 30%
involved.
of your
Yeah.
main cast has to be
Right.
representative of minority class. I think.
And I've already seen an op-ed about, well, are they just doing this because, or is it because they have to?
I can kind of see both parts. Like, I see the argument against it because people are saying, listen, now you're going to have all this inclusion only because you're being forced to do it. And, that's going to be an obvious plant. And, obviously you're trying for the Oscar contender. But at the same time, if you're not being forced to do it, then they're not doing it because we're seeing that right now. A lot of your mainstream films are not. But by saying that you have to have so much percentage of your cast featuring certain characters, like what if your whole set and your entire plot is a very microcosm type, story?
Right.
Yeah.
Like Panic Room. Remember that one? Like, I mean, it all took place in a tiny room.
Yeah.
So how in the world would you ever fit that new requirement?
Multiple person.
Yeah, if you have like a 4-person cast.
it's all a Zoom movie or something like that.
Right, and
yeah.
it just seems to me like by doing that, you are limiting, good quality films that could have otherwise been considered. I'm not saying that obviously inclusion is not important. It very much is. Representation is important.
Yeah.
What about a movie, say it's set in the past? I mean, you see how people were just kind of hidden away, not talked about and things like that, and they really didn't get a...
Well, at the same time, it might actually spawn different things that we've not seen before.
True.
You can look at it one of two ways. Either it's a hindrance or it might spark some creativity. At the same time, I'll never forget. I don't know if you ever saw Jimmy Fallon. Speaking of inclusivity, when they set up like a camera outside of a Black Panther screening, and they had people that came out basically record a message to Chadwick Boseman about how they liked the movie.
And then
of course it was a monster, and Chadwick Boseman was behind the curtain anyway. He came out, but you would think this was great. It was such a great movie, superhero, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't. It was everybody, most of them were African American, and came out and just were in tears because they had never seen a movie where there was essentially just one white person in it.
I don't even... If
Martin
you can
Freeman.
name who the
Martin
one
Freeman.
white person... Oh, yeah, Martin
The only reason I say Martin Freeman because Martin Freeman was huge.
Gollum was in it.
Right then.
Andy Serkis.
Yeah,
he
Andy
was in it.
Serkis.
Was he?
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Well,
now I remember.
Either way, but they all came out and were, like I said, were just in tears because they had never seen a movie like that.
Representation. Yeah, it's important.
And as my brother always said, you never really sat down and thought that pretty much every movie's made for a white audience. Every single one of them.
Yep.
And that was kind of the case. But Black Panther was great. And you also kind of, if you paid attention to the people that were in it, the main characters, they were all some of the biggest names of African American actors.
Yes.
Because
if you were a black person in Hollywood and did not get cast in
Right.
Black Panther, get a new agent.
yeah, because the one head of the tribe that was kind of feuding with them, he was on Person of Interest. You watch Person of Interest. He was Dominic in Person of Interest, which was a great TV show. And he was in Spencer Confidential, that Mark Wahlberg movie that just came out. Did you not ever see that one?
Just came
Don't
out.
think
It was
so.
on Netflix.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But, I can't think of her name on Walking Dead with the dreadlocks and the sword. Gosh, how come I...
Oh, they had the zombie
oh, yeah.
things
Yeah.
walking with her.
Denai
Yeah.
Guerra.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was... I mean, it was just everybody. So, it was a great cast because, like I said, you recognize just about everybody
Yeah,
in the film.
Lupita Nyong'o.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe this will put an end to some of these remakes, unless they're going to have to transform the characters completely to have,
Hey, there's
was a
some
good one.
thunder.
I don't
we can
know.
only hope.
Well, speaking of we mentioned Netflix.
Yeah.
There's a new movie on Netflix that's got a lot of people talking.
Yeah, you gonna watch that one, Erin?
I don't think so.
Not gonna be on your to-do
It's
list.
But
called...
you're not going to cancel Netflix.
No!
Okay.
I haven't finished Away yet, so I'm not...
My list, my Netflix
it's so
list
big.
is so huge.
No, I'm not...
We're talking about the Cuties movie.
Cuties movie.
Yes.
Dance team. And I think it's actually about a character trying to rebel against her family.
Yeah, I think she's maybe Muslim.
Muslim, yeah.
Kind of traditional,
It's
and she wants to do what her friends are doing. Right?
it's a French film. But yes, a lot of people are upset, even though dance teams for the past maybe even 20 years have looked like that.
I think the issue is, and I've not even watched the trailer for the film. I've read several reviews,
Yeah.
I've seen the
11-year-old,
poster, and
we
I,
should point that out.
Yeah, it's younger preteens.
yeah, they're like 11
Yeah.
prepubescent teenage girls, and I think the entire concept is look how we are sexualizing the youth these days, and this is what's happening, and this isn't out of some filmmaker's imagination. This is actually happening.
Yeah.
And so essentially, what they've done is they've created this movie to show what these kids are going through, what they're trying to emulate.
So it's making a point about it.
It is.
And it's
People are
making a
out there.
point about not being traditional either with the
Yes.
Muslim tradition.
And I think that's what a lot of the reviewers, and even overseas in the international community, it got rave reviews. And that's what they're saying is that it's pointing out important things. This is really what's happening with our youth is we're dressing them provocatively, and we're teaching children to dress in a sexy manner and
dance in a
yes,
sexy
and to
manner.
dance in these certain ways, and this is how you will be popular, and this is what's important. This is how you win.
And America's reaction is
Right.
Oh, and you've had Congress people all react to the. Some of them have.
I think some of it's warranted though, because, and again, I've not watched the film, but from the reviews I'm seeing, most people that I've read the reviews, they recognize what the film is trying to say.
Right.
But they do go on to say that there's a lot of things that they feel are just too exploitive. That there's apparently some like crotch shots of children. There's just the way that the way that apparently there may or may not be like a bare breast of one of the child actors. They just think that some of it is a little bit too exploitive.
By the way, if you've seen this movie, let us know and what your take on it is, because
So this movie's out. It's on Netflix.
it's on
Netflix.
Netflix. Yeah, yes.
I think I just saw earlier today Ted Cruz is calling on the Department of Justice to investigate the Netflix head and board for, I guess, advocating child pornography or something because of some of the content
I think
in this.
you know what other term was brought in. I think was sexual trafficking. I think that was brought into it,
which kind of goes back to our discussion. With
we had
Robinson. And that's another thing too is, yes, maybe you're filming this, maybe you're making this film to try and teach parents and to teach people that this is what's really happening in kids these ages. But at the same time, you're also putting this material out there for people who are going to abuse it.
Yeah.
And that are abusing children. And this is just kind of feeding into the type of material they like to absorb in a legal manner.
Yeah.
Really.
Dustin and I were talking about Caitlin Dever. What was the film the series that she did?
Unbelievable.
Right, and it was a very...
it was hard
it's
to watch. It
don't know
is,
this one.
but what it is she's probably early 20s, and she's raped by spoiler alert, what turns out to be a serial rapist. And she was in kind of I'm not going to say like a group home, but like a place for young people to get on their feet. I think she might have been, she was in foster care at one point growing up. And the way that her case was treated, she said she was raped, and she, what the show kind of goes through is some people take on her case and find other people from other places that had the same exact, say like the same guy essentially
describing the same guy.
But
and
her
all that.
problem was that the way that she was treated, she just couldn't handle it. And that on top of the rape, there was a certain point where you could kind of see that she spun out, and they were just like, "Did this really happen? Did this really happen?"
It became,
and she just wanted to all quit,
Yeah.
so she just said, "No, I made it up." And then they had another victim who pretty much acted as though nothing had really happened, always kept a smile on her face, a lot of self-deprecating humor. And then they had an older lady. I can't even with her. She was just crushed.
Yeah.
Because the person was still out there, and it was kind of all these different cases. And this is a true story, by the way. And there were a couple of female detectives that basically put it together because it was kind of like the Golden State Killer, who was also a rapist, but he was a cop, so he recognized. If you're familiar with the case, he recognized as a police officer that different police departments do not communicate. So as long as you jump around, you weren't ever going to get caught, because no one's ever going to, it's so hard to solve a rape case anyway,
And the departments are so inclusive.
they knew that as long as I jump around, they're never going to follow this to the bitter end because they're just swamped. So it was a great show. I think they got some awards. She might have got nominated, maybe even won an award. But it's one of those things where you're like, I'll watch it, and it's great, but I'll probably never ever watch it again.
Right.
But it's one of those tough subjects.
Yeah,
and,
it
and
is.
Cuties is, I'm presuming that's going to be a tough subject that a lot of people don't want to face, and a lot of people are just saying, let's ban it and not even have to deal with it.
Is there a better way to talk about that subject and explore that subject without the exploitation? I think that's the question.
I think we also need to take into consideration that France is not the U.S.
It's true.
Yeah,
Europe
that's
is not the
very
US.
the US.
Yeah, exactly.
We've
We're
also-
very puritanical inside.
Yeah.
But so many things have already been done, and everybody's trying to one up themselves. And we're living maybe in the 70s it wouldn't have happened, but now 2020.
Well, see, I remember years ago there was a movie that came out called Kids. Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw that. Yes, I did.
Rosario Dawson was in it years ago. And the whole premise of it was a bunch of teenagers going around having unprotected sex, and it ends up where one of them turns out to be HIV positive.
Because somebody
And-
was HIV positive and giving
Yes.
it to everybody.
Yeah.
And she was trying to contact the people she'd been with to warn them. And it follows around these different characters. She ends up in the party, and this one guy that she had been with, that she had gotten it from, he's like stalking this one girl who is a virgin, and he's really trying to get with her. And at the end of it, the girl who ends up positive, she goes to the party. She's going to warn this girl. She gets sidetracked. I think she gets drugged or something like that. Doesn't get to warn her, and
She gets raped, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She gets raped, and then the other guy, he ends up successfully taking that girl's virginity.
Yeah.
Ends up giving her HIV,
Right.
and it was a very, very
Oh, that was-
topic. But
yes.
when I heard about Cuties, that's the first movie that kind of reminded me of was
I could see that.
you can think, man, that's horrible, but that's happening. This is the world we live in, and that was years ago. That was 20 some odd years ago when that film came out.
Yeah.
And this is what teenagers are going through, and this is what 11-year-old kids. This is what sixth graders are wearing clothes these days. We're selling them. We're making them look like what's the term?
Pageants.
Yeah,
And maybe-
prostitutes, right? Like, isn't that the term?
And maybe
Yeah.
it's because we're in the 21st century. But some of the judges, like at dance competitions, they are older people. And what do they think of it? Do they think it's, oh, yeah, we need to change with the times, or no, I miss traditional ballet even, or...
And if you're this person, let's say here, let's take it. Let's say that Sam, you're a judge at one of these pageants, okay? And you're sitting here, and are you supposed to call out the fact that these 11-year-olds are dressed provocatively? Because all of a sudden, does that mean like, well, why are you making it sexual, Sam? Why are you making it sexual? They're 11-year-olds. But at the same time, it's like, well, how am I supposed to take
Yeah,
this?
because I'm thinking if I don't say anything, are they going to think I'm cool with this?
Right.
Or if I point it out, are they going to think, well, he's got a perverted mind?
But isn't he supposed to focus on the dancing?
Yes.
And not the looks?
But I mean, how do you bifurcate
I know
that?
it's again, Dance Moms. I used to watch that show all the time.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. But.
So that's what I want to know. I want to hear from people. Like, are you just saying, oh, because they dress these kids provocatively, we're going to cancel Netflix? Or is there a valid point to be made? Is there some value to these discussions?
There's a certain point where could they essentially edit out literally 15 seconds of this movie and
still
not have
get
a
the point.
problem?
Right.
Because
What
there's
kind of
a
rating
certain
does it
point.
have, or how does
There's a
Netflix treat that?
Don't know.
I don't know. I don't know how much of it is out of bounds for some people. But the one thing that you I think it was just older movies. Sometimes you would hear or you see on IMDb facts about that there's no shot longer than like 11 seconds. So it's just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So could they essentially edit out quite literally 30 seconds of this movie?
Or even have it set where you can skip over a part.
Yeah.
It has a TVMA rating on it.
Which is probably appropriate. But
that's
even still,
probably-
11-year-olds, a film featuring 11-year-olds has a TV mature rating? That seems insane, right? Like,
And you know what you're getting into probably since you've
Yeah.
already heard about it. But for people to want to have it, well, they haven't called it to be banned, I don't think. They just said, I'm not going to
They're just thinking, I'm not going to give Netflix my
I
business
mean, this
anymore.
could be a movie that's making a point that people are not going, a lot of people aren't going to see because they don't want to hear the story.
Netflix didn't help its argument when they promoted this film by essentially showing a bunch of little kids twerking. I mean, they could have probably picked better promotional.
Right.
At the same time, let's not forget about the fact that everyone blowing this movie up is going to make it seen so many more times.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm not watching a French film. I mean, it's just now I watch a lot of foreign stuff, but typically I go by whether or not it was dubbed in English, because sometimes I don't. It's not that I don't like reading. It's just that unless I know something is really, really, really good, I like to focus on what's happening a little more than whether or not I can get through all the subtitles.
Well, see, Parasite was subtitled.
Well,
Yeah.
See, I watch everything with subtitles anyway.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah. See,
My
that's
parents were
'cause
like,
you're a
I'm not.
weirdo.
But a lot of people said I'm not watching that movie because it's subtitled.
Well, I like I said, I like a good dubbed English dubbed. If it's got English dubbing, I'll usually go with it. I just finished a Dutch show called The Rain that had a really good English dubbing on
Oh,
it.
good.
But it's a great show.
Mm-hmm.
It moves fast. Only 3 seasons. Another good thing I like about British and European shows is they don't, like The Walking Dead, not ever going to happen in Europe or the United Kingdom because they know what they want to do. Well, like that new Walking Dead show.
Fear the Walking Dead?
No,
Well, no,
there's
The World Beyond.
The World Beyond.
Yeah, that's the new
They're
one that's
doing
coming out.
3 seasons.
Yeah.
And they're
going to
getting
end
the
it.
heck out.
Tell your
Yeah.
story and get out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's so great about it. That's what they did with The Rain. The Rain was good because for a time, this is set in Denmark, and a rainstorm comes, and everyone that gets rained on dies instantly.
Mm-hmm.
They get a virus. And so kind of a doctor that may or may not have created, I think he did help create the virus that's in the rain, takes his family to a bunker. They're like, it starts off, they're getting out, and takes them to a bunker, and then he has a suit and goes back out because he's got to work on stopping what's happening. But then there's like a 16-year-old and like maybe 11-year-old boy, 16-year-old girl, 11-year-old boy. And it's like the first day, like as soon as it starts raining, their mother goes outside for some reason and she is
Right.
done.
It's
So
her
it's just them.
constitutional right to be outside
Right.
in a
Yeah.
rainstorm.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Freedom.
So,
Freedom.
but they essentially, when you come, it essentially fades to black, and you come back, and it's like 5 years later, and
It's kind of timely given.
There's so many
Yeah.
creativity in these zombie shows and,
Oh, yeah.
and virus shows.
Post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's fairly what we're dealing with now in terms of intensity is tame to getting rained on and getting sick, but I don't know.
no, it's getting rained on and dying.
Oh, dying.
It's
Sorry.
just, you're
Here's
out.
the thing, though, that what's going on right now, which cracks me up, because we've always seen these virus movies, right, and these post-apocalyptic type films, and how the world reacts and all that. That's all pure fantasy. We've seen how the world reacts now when we have pandemics, and like if you've ever watched Contagion or Outbreak, no.
It'd be pretty lame if it was.
I
really
was going to
based
say,
Yeah.
to think that anybody's taking such precautions, that's ridiculous.
But again, those are movies where it's Contagion, I guess, is the closest one to compare to what we have going on now, even though that's a deadly, deadly disease.
Of course, Escape from New York didn't come to pass for 1997 either.
Right.
just
This is
New
true.
York being one
Oh,
prison.
I don't know about New York if it comes back or not. Or a lot of people are saying it won't.
You think?
I don't know. Well, I mean, a lot of people moved.
I feel like it'll always be a hub. Like
Like Broadway plans to come back, but it'll be next year.
it's gonna happen. I mean, it's gonna come back, but I think we'll see
So
a
what
delay.
around here are we looking forward to coming back here in Ohio County? Well, we want shows at the
The amphitheater.
Yeah.
Beaver Dam
I think-
Amphitheater.
I mean, I just think even small things like Courthouse Players, which I know
Yeah.
they are going to bring back they are going to move forward with their Mystery Dinner Theater. I
Right.
think
That's
they're going to do it at
coming
the
up at the end of the
amphitheater though,
month, yeah.
allow
Yeah.
for social distancing.
Right.
But I miss those. I miss the library events and all the activities
Yeah.
that the library would always put on. I miss the festivals. We're not getting any festivals, I don't think, really this
Yeah,
year.
'cause-
Everything
Well,
really scaled
we don't
back,
Well,
real scaled back Jerusalem Ridge type
Yeah,
situation
yeah.
this weekend. As a matter of fact, that I just found out about.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, that's good.
But we were talking before we started shooting here, what acts we'd like to see when the amp
Yeah.
comes back.
I'll be right back, guys. I got to make a phone call.
Okay.
Keep going.
We'll
You're
keep
out.
going. Well, we were talking about, Rock the Dam got canceled, but,
It's kind of a
well,
postponement.
it's not a postponement.
Yeah.
There'll be
That's
some different
my,
acts probably. I don't think we'll. Things are going. There's some artists that are going to choose not to tour next year.
Sure.
Period. Straight
yeah,
up.
and that's probably more health related than
Yeah.
anything. Well, I mean, you want to keep your fans safe too, because they're the same age essentially. Now
Pretty
they
much,
are.
Yeah, they are. So, it's. I don't think we'll be getting a lot of festivals. Obviously, not that we, with
Right.
the exception of Rock the Dam, which could still happen. So,
We were trying to think who we could bring to Rock the Dam.
Well, it really just depends on. It really depends on how quickly this vaccine starts and when it's going to get here.
Which
Because,
again, once a vaccine's released, we're not getting it automatically. We may wait 6 months for it.
But every time a person gets it, we're better off.
Sure.
And I honestly think it's going to take a couple of rounds for the first people that get it. They're going to get it a second time because it appears that it wears off a little bit over time. But it's kind of one of those things where even if you don't partake in some of the things that aren't going on, it's kind of good to know that they're there. That because people, even if you don't enjoy certain things, people do.
Yeah. They'll do it. They'll go enjoy. No matter what.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess, and that's just human nature.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting, and I always we like to go to the 80s show at the amphitheater, the Night Ranger show we went to, and it was phenomenal. If you've never seen Night Ranger, I'm down for Night Ranger, but that was a neat show. The Night Ranger show was neat. Really, to me, because of Slaughter, the way that came out. If people aren't familiar with what happened with Slaughter, is basically Slaughter's band couldn't make it, right. And
so they had to step in,
right?
Oh,
and,
that's awesome.
I was talking to Mayor Paul Sandifer, and he was kind of like, I was there when Mark Slaughter was making phone calls trying to put this together, and it was the first show back with their original drummer in like a decade. And they got a bass player because apparently his bass player and his drummer was stuck in Detroit. And so he called up, was it Matthew or Gunnar Nelson of Nelson? I can't remember which one. I think it was Gunnar Nelson. And he literally said, "What are you doing Saturday?" And this was like a Thursday night or something, maybe Friday. And he's like, "Well, I was planning on driving up to Beaver Dam." He was in Nashville. He's like, "Well, he lives there. I was planning to drive up to Beaver Dam and watch your show." And he was like, "Well, bring your guitar." He's like, "Oh, fine. So what we got? We're gonna play a couple songs." He's like, "How about you play all of them?" And literally, and then at the show, he was like, "Bear with me, I don't know these songs," and he was not kidding, because you could kind of tell if you were listening that there were a lot of times he was just playing open chords that he knew worked in, but he wasn't playing the song.
But doesn't that make it better?
Yeah, then his brother comes out. And they start playing the Nelson hits. Because
they weren't scheduled to be there. No, this was totally spontaneous. I mean,
I wasn't a big Nelson fan, but I know there are 2 or 3 songs that they got that were honest to God hits.
Yep.
So it was kind of neat I think I posted on Instagram, went to a Slaughter show and a Nelson show broke out.
Right, got a very unique performance out of it.
Yeah, so it was neat. And it was a good show. I mean, it was a real good show. Warrant, I think I think what it is you can tell with some of these bands that when they get to Beaver Dam, Kentucky, population 3,500, and they're at a venue that can hold more than every man, woman, and child, they're like, "What is this?" Going in, and then they get there, and you could tell that Warrant was having a ball up there.
That's great.
They just loved it. The lead singer was he was over the moon. And I guess they just didn't think that it was going to be what it is. And so it was really cool.
But isn't that the local sentiment as well? Like when everybody said, "Oh, Beaver Dam's doing an amphitheater," like what do they expect to get big acts to come here? We don't have a big enough population to support these type of concerts.
I actually said that.
Yeah, and
I'm on the board.
Yeah, exactly. But look what's happening. Look where we're pulling people from. I think that's incredible. I'm not saying personally I'm a fan of every act that they that they have out there, but that's okay. They're not putting on concerts for Tara Ward, right? Like they're
doing it for everybody.
Yeah, and that's something you forget sometimes because we're thinking tourism. We might think, well, I don't know anybody in this town that would be impressed with so and so. Well,
who cares?
It's tourism,
It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about people driving over 50 miles to come here and spend money so that we don't have to spend money.
People from Texas, Australia.
Yeah.
But I mean, those people would also come up to the Bill Monroe stuff too. I mean, everywhere they'd come from everywhere.
Oh yeah, they come from all over the world. But yeah, it's super cool.
Let's talk about tourism. Beaver Dam's doing a great job of capitalizing. Obviously, they have a lot of money now because of the restaurant tax. They were able to kind of capitalize on that and build a base where they could hire people and do more with tourism. We do have a Howell County Tourism, and and nothing against their efforts, but it just kind of feels like we've had this Bill Monroe, we've had this bluegrass thing, since bluegrass was ever invented, it's always had a home with Ohio County. But I feel like we've never really jumped on that. We've never taken advantage of that to the extent that we need to. And what's the reason behind that? Has our county just ignored it? Have we just not embraced it enough? I mean, what are y'all's thoughts on that?
It's taking something for granted that you have, and you're like,
It's
yeah,
just
we've got
something.
it, but
Again, it's something that you just don't realize
Yeah,
because when Bill Monroe passed, all these people came.
Vince Gill was here,
Vince
right?
Gill and
Like,
Ricky Skaggs and all these people, and you can go see his grave up at Rosine. I mean, it's
yeah,
just
it's a nice
right
monument.
there.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
we had some
It's
people,
ridiculous.
Yeah.
some guys came in from the Netherlands.
yeah.
Just this past year.
We had, when I was with the newspaper, we had a group. In fact, I spoke to one of the guys. I somehow saw him on Facebook. It was weird. A group come down from London, England, and they were literally just almost like making a pilgrimage to the barn. And they played at the barn that night, and they were fabulous. They were called the Morse, either the Morse Boys or Morse Brothers. Mm-hmm. And their mandolin player, his day job was he was a concert cellist.
Oh.
And was like a straight up hippie. I don't know how he is back in
Right.
London, but he was like a straight up hippie. But it was neat to see them come in because they play things a little differently. But to have them at the barn, and I mean, they were having a blast. But it was really neat. They basically, pooled their resources and made the trip up here. So it was pretty cool.
So clearly we have a draw. And we know that they are doing, they've got the home place, they do the tours, they do the picking on the porch, they do the barn. But to me, there's so much more that even Howe County can offer. Like, I don't know if you're aware, but, but for the rain that we're getting today, they have started installing the kayak access ramps up and down Rough River, from this grant that we've been working on for the past few years. Unfortunately, it's been weather dependent. But Hartford installed an access point below the weir down at the at Riverfront Park. And we've got steps going in around Combs Bridge and all up the river there. And there are things to do in Ohio County. One of my biggest pet peeves, I don't know about you all, but is
There's
nothing to do. Bull crap.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things to do.
And people from Owensboro come here because there's nothing to do. in
Right.
Yeah.
There's things to do.
And
It's
that's
just,
sad when you can't find anything in Owensboro to do.
Well,
But
I'm convinced.
I
people
live in
want a free
Owensboro, by
babysitter.
the way, and I can't find a lot to do.
But it's what you're willing
Beside
to do.
the point.
I think a lot
Sure,
of it. It's
yeah.
what you're willing to do. And I think one of our biggest issues in Ohio County that we've always had that I'd love to see us work on is communication between these different departments, between
Right.
these different agencies.
And between cities.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
if we had kind of one way of like pulling everybody together and making sure that everybody, all these different festivals, all these different events, if we had a community calendar, if we had a way of putting this together, getting it out to the public,
Sure.
making sure people know what's going on, working together, being supportive
Right.
versus instead of just coming up with reasons why this won't work.
yeah.
Right.
I think it would be amazing to see what we could develop here. I mean, we're a huge county. We're massive. And routinely we hear negative comments. I mean, Dustin, with the OC Monitor, I think I've heard you complain all the time that you could post the most feel-good, greatest, awesome stories in the world, and it might get you a handful of clicks.
Oh, for sure.
But you post one thing about, a drug bust.
Oh
or,
yeah,
or,
it's there's, and that's a kind of a product of the world that we live in. The old saying, "If it bleeds, it leads." But that's the thing I've said about Facebook and social media, kind of in general. I think I told you all I've recently started unfollowing people just to get the trash out, and it's almost as if Facebook doesn't know how to give me stuff that isn't
Like a newsworthy
constructed
kind of
to be
thing.
divisive and to pull out, isn't conducive to a visceral reaction, either fear or just general divisiveness, something. It has to get almost anger out of you.
Of course,
or
they have
else,
to make money too.
right, and I completely understand that. But at the same time, I have a problem with them talking about, oh, we're here so you can share photos of your family and your vacations and things like that. No, I don't see that. Since I've started unfollowing everybody that just wants to, because Facebook is an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is all things that you like. You like this page, you like that page, you like this, you like that. The only thing you don't have any control of are people that you went to school with or people that are your friends, and they have different things that matter to them than you do. But you've created this echo chamber of likes.
But when you grow up together, you're culturally, typically, you're going to be very similar in your likes,
Right.
in your content. So what you're seeing is, and people are becoming so brazen about some of their very controversial views on the world,
Right.
because they're thinking, oh, everybody agrees with me because that's all I see on
Right,
Facebook.
exactly.
Because this
And-
person's my friend,
Right,
or
and-
we knew each other
look, I
then,
got
and now this
62
happens.
likes when I
Sure.
made this
Right.
horrible
Yeah.
racist post.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not, I mean,
Yeah.
but regardless, now that I have actually started unfollowing people to get kind of just, it's really the divisiveness that's the problem.
Well, it's an election
Even
year.
even when you see someone posting something like, some of you all didn't do this like I did when you were growing up, and it shows.
Yeah.
That's just straight up. I mean,
And
that's
that
what
could
it
even,
is.
and that could even be a meme.
Right.
It couldn't
could
even
just
be just
something
a,
that,
yeah.
But
Memes
when
are,
you see it, you're kind of like, oh, well, that's funny. But it's still trying to say, I'm better than you. And just so kind of
gosh.
subliminally. But there's so much of that. But whenever you back up off of that and say, okay, I'm going to get rid of this stuff, even as benign as it might be. Now, I went through the other day, went through 100 posts. And I think I had 12 that had happened in the last 24 hours. And
Oh, I've said
that
the
was
same issue.
because
Oh, yeah.
that was because I had one or two friends that I guess had a run and just posted 2 or 3, 4 things at once. But now I'll have stuff that literally happened. It would be like
Last week.
1 week ago, 7 days ago, 3
Yep.
days ago, 4 days ago. And I'm just like, what is happening here? But it's like Facebook does not know what to do with me. Because it can't. It's like the algorithm is not built to fill my feed right now, and I don't think people take that into consideration because it's just, there
So-
are,
like, how often do you post on Facebook? Just your personal page, because Sam also has pop instincts. He does stuff with that. But
Yeah.
personally, how much do you post?
Depending on what's on my mind, I might go a week without saying anything.
That's
and-
about what I am too.
I
And then
share
I-
more than I post, I think.
Yeah, I think
There's that.
sharing probably actually happens more.
Rarely ever get on weekends, hardly
Yeah.
ever. So if anybody out there has a birthday on a Saturday, I'm not going to see it, and I'm not going to wish you a happy birthday.
Didn't they do away with that at one point? The
They did,
birthdays,
and it really-
And I was like, that was like the one good thing that Facebook
Yeah,
did.
that's like the one time I hear from this person.
But I mean, I think that goes back to the issue is, from a news standpoint, I'm hearing you say good news doesn't sell. But look what John Krasinski did during his COVID time.
Yep.
He's the good news, where he would put on like a broadcast of good things happening, and people ate that up.
Oh, they ate it
love
up, and then CBS bought it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, it's like, so good news can sell.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a mentality is we've kind of conditioned ourselves to, I don't know, it's just we're so cynical.
Expect the worst.
Yeah.
I
Cynical.
guess.
I think people
Yeah.
get bored after a while. I think people were a bit more concerned about each other with COVID, for example, back in May than they are in September.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe you all are as lame as me, but my husband and I tend to text things across the house to each other, like pictures of, cute dogs doing things. Or the other day, a cow cuddling with a hedgehog toy, which was really, really cute. I'm probably not going to eat beef
Oh no, you
anymore
see a
because
lot.
of it,
Yeah,
but-
a lot of people
but-
will do that
but
though.
at the same time, going back to some news stuff, good news is a thing, but there's a certain point where there are things that people need to hear, and there are things that people want to hear.
Yeah.
People want to hear about a car wreck or a drug bust or whatever,
A fire
but
maybe.
they also need to hear about fiscal court.
or the suicide awareness month.
Suicide
Yeah,
awareness.
absolutely, mental health.
But there are just certain things because you can look it up. If you do not have a local news organization covering local government, it costs you money. It straight up costs you money.
Right.
Because, and it's not so much that we're here to make sure these city councils and city commissions and fiscal courts, aren't doing anything illegal. It's just that if nobody's watching them, there might be an idea that they have to do something that costs a bunch of money, and they wouldn't be willing to do it if someone was noticing it.
Or,
what?
and a lot of times I remind people too, especially when you get small towns and small cities. Okay, nobody is getting rich at the local level. I know people love to post on Facebook
Yeah.
when things happen.
like to
like,
think-
oh, it's lining the pockets. No,
Yeah.
No.
I think our poor city council members in Hartford, they maybe make $150 a month, maybe. I think
Really?
yeah, not a whole lot. Okay, they're not getting rich.
I don't know
on
what
doing
it's a meeting fee, isn't it?
essentially.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It's a nominal fee, whatever you get paid.
Yeah.
But if the city's not making money on anything. A city is definitely a nonprofit. It's a zero-sum game. Okay, needed services like police and fire and things like that. They don't make money. They're not making any money. But
Right.
It costs money. It costs tremendous amounts of money to do that. So when you have people complaining, like I saw Beaver Dam right now made headlines because people are upset because of the new trash ordinance.
Oh, gosh.
And Hartford had to do that a couple years ago too. But do you
Yeah, I
know it
forgot about
costs
that.
money? How much money it costs to collect? You have to pay people to go and collect the trash.
Yeah.
You have to pay money to get rid of that trash. There are landfill dump fees. And what people don't think about that.
People don't understand that.
It
It's
costs
not
you less than
communication.
$15, less than $20 a month for someone to come to your house every week and haul off your trash. Would you take that to the landfill every damn time yourself?
Right.
No, you would. I wouldn't.
No. But people are uninformed, and
Yeah. And so what? You're being asked to make sure that it's bagged up with a lid on it so the dogs.
Oh,
and
and
cats
that's
in
the
neighborhood
thing
don't get
too.
into
You
it?
just used to just put your trash in a trash can, and
Yeah.
now you can't even do that.
So I mean,
Well, I was at the meeting whenever they had a couple meetings. They discussed it. The first one just said, "Hey, we're going to need to do something about this." So next month, but they were talking about how they literally went 50% more tonnage. Like they went from collecting like 24 tons a week or whenever they collect. I don't know if they collect every week or every other week, whatever. Trash day. But they went from collecting like 24 tons to 36 tons.
which is a huge increase. And it
That's-
costs so much to
That's
get rid of it.
insane.
And think about the maintenance that you have on your trash trucks, the workers that you have to pay to collect all this.
the longer it takes them picking up trash.
And
to
during
pay
a
them.
pandemic, all the PPE you have to supply right now because you don't want your workers getting sick, and you have to make sure that they're taken care of. I mean, these are things that I don't think people understand, and you constantly hear people complaining about the trash costs and about the water costs and the sewer costs, and I get it. It adds up. It is expensive. But it costs money to treat water. It costs money to dispose of sewage. It costs money to maintain these lines. And that's where I think that local news sources like this, it's so important to not only tell you what your local government is doing, but to keep you informed of why they're having to do this. One of my biggest pet peeves that came about during this whole COVID thing is when the fiscal court doubled the occupational tax to 2%. And they did this at a meeting.
Oh,
where
no, they went up a quarter of a
a
percent.
quarter percent. I'm sorry, not 2%.
Yeah, quarter
a quarter
percent.
percent. They did this at a meeting where the public was not allowed to attend
Right.
because of COVID. And they limited public interaction. They limited the amount of questions people could talk. They had basically announced, hey, it started off saying maybe we should do something about county water bills and having maybe a little bit extra fee on county taxes, to all of a sudden we're going to tax everybody an extra 0.25% on their occupational tax. And it's like, well, wait a minute, that's a huge discrepancy here. Where's this money going? Is there anything you can do? They didn't talk about anything they could do or any ways they tried to offset some of the expenses. It's just, how can we get more money from people? And they did it at a time where you're going to affect everybody. Everybody's already in a crunch because of the virus, and we're, limited hours, unemployment is outrageous. We're all facing, how are we going to pay the bills as it
Right.
is? And you're going to dip into our paychecks more. And they just did this because now it's convenient because nobody can stop us.
Well, I don't know that they did it because no one could stop them, but at the same time, the avenue at which they were doing this to help fund the fire departments, volunteer fire departments, and I think
911.
911. And the 911 fee had not gone up, in forever. But the issue that came about with the 911 is it's a state issue, honestly, because it's a situation where 911 gets funded through telephones.
And no one
Who
has
has a
phones anymore.
telephone?
Right.
Yeah.
We all have cell phones. So the funding is just dropping like a rock. And
I'm not saying it wasn't needed.
I
My
guess
point being
it's-
is how they went about it was wrong.
Yeah, but I guess kind of my point is that the state has dropped the ball specifically with 911 because you can fix this. We like to talk about our first responders. Well, guess what? Dispatch is the first responder.
Yes.
And you're not helping them by putting it on these counties to come up with a solution that the state set up for, I guess at the time it was Bell South, but then AT&T lobbied against having to put landlines in anymore. So if you build a new house, you got to pay for a landline to be put in, whereas they used to be legally obligated to put it in. So when you're getting out of the landline business, you're taking money away from dispatch, 911. That's exactly what you're doing.
And I completely agree with the understanding about why they needed to raise funds. I think dispatch is obviously very important. I work closely with dispatch, and I rely on, they're very good people, and they do a great job, and it's a very, very needed resource. But my issue comes back to the way that our local leaders handled the situation, when they decided to go about it, how it was announced to the public, and basically where they would just bulldoze it through without taking any consideration about what was going on.
All because of COVID.
Yeah, and it just left a bad taste in my mouth, because when people talk bad about politics, and that's the type of stuff that really makes me mad. Is I'm not saying I don't understand your reasoning behind the situation, but the way that you're treating the people and just saying, well, it has to be done and we have to do it, then you should at least give people a platform to voice their concerns and listen. And you weren't even spelling out your reasons. You weren't letting people ask questions. You weren't even giving them a platform to come up and say, this is going to hurt me personally, or this is going to hurt me as an entrepreneur or as a business owner. You just did it. Mm-hmm. And when you come down to like local news sources, I remember after that came out, the headlines, people are like, well, this was wrong. They shouldn't have done this. They should have waited. Or, if I had known about this, I wouldn't have been at a meeting. And, I think I remember O.C. Monitor came out, you had an article about that it was going to happen maybe 2 hours before the meeting? It wasn't too long. It wasn't much lead time. Yeah.
But that kind of thing has happened whenever Hartford put their occupational tax on.
Same.
Now, there was a bunch of people showed up for that. We
but
put
they
it out
announced
that day.
it. Yeah.
But actually, we put the story out like the day before whenever we got the notice that the meeting was going to happen, because we just assumed it was going to be next month or something, but not like you had one meeting on Thursday and then you had the next meeting like the next Thursday. Didn't expect that to happen, but either way, a bunch of people showed up. The issue that I had with the occupational tax increase, the way they did it, was you're losing money on this year.
Right. It wasn't like they were going to gain anything by pushing it through so quickly.
There's no
Exactly.
way. There's no way this is going to pan out this year with everybody got shut down for 3 months?
Yeah, nobody's working.
So the issue that you're going to run into is you're not going to have that 0.25% means nothing. Now it's you've lost money overall. And that's kind of the thing that I worry about moving forward with the way that basically the way that the fiscal court runs is your road department is your biggest spending. That's your biggest expense. And
for better or for worse.
If we don't pull back on how much money we're spending on the road department in the summer when the fiscal year started on July 1st, come January, when you're 6 months away from the end of the fiscal year, and if you don't have any money, there's no way for you to save it because you spent it all when it was warm and you were laying asphalt. So I hope that they're keeping an eye on that, because that's what worries me, because if you run short of money, there's nowhere to make it up, because the thing that absolutely you spend the most money on is done in October. I mean, there's no more. So if you've spent that money in October, then you're done. So hopefully the other departments are working out pretty well too, because it's going to be rough if we don't. So
clearly we just all need to sit on the local fiscal court and make the decisions and run our governments. But I will say that the one thing that our fiscal court has done recently that I commend, Judge Johnston recently signed a proclamation for mental health awareness and suicide awareness, and they have formed this mental health committee here locally in Ohio County. And, we did our episode with Ashley Davis, which I thought was phenomenal. She did a fantastic job bringing up timely topics, bringing up issues, way to spot things. We do have that upcoming suicide awareness walk on September 26th.
September 26th.
But I remember after our interview with Ashley, we kind of sat around, which kind of spawned the idea for the conversation we're having now, is, when we were in school and teenagers and even younger, which I think is when you start to really kind of start having mental health issues, or if you're going to have any issues at all. But it's just when you start to kind of realize, you know, you've got a world waiting on you, and not everything is just fixed by waking up and going to school every day. There weren't as many resources available then. It didn't feel like.
I don't think
there.
I think there were zero.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Well, but I mean, that's kind of one of those things where when you're that age,
You don't think
you never
about
pay
it.
attention to it.
Yeah,
And
you
people didn't
don't.
talk about
Whether
it.
or not
No,
it
and
was
yeah, they don't
there,
talk about it
They
either.
still don't, but to the
Yeah.
extent then it was.
But whether
let's
or not they were there,
Do you
who
recall the
knows?
Big Brother, Big Sister type program? It's not like Big Brothers of America, but I remember actually the principal's daughter, when I was a freshman, she was like, hey, I've drew your name, and I'm your big sister, and if you have anything you want to talk about, you can, you know, I'm here. And I'm like, okay. And then I thought, well, I'm not going to talk to anybody
Right.
about my, you know,
We
15
had
and,
what was ours called? Natural
Natural
helpers.
helpers.
Yeah,
Natural
where it's supposed
when I
to-
was
Helpers.
in middle school.
But if you remember, it was like the popular kids basically would nominate who they would talk to. So they would go on this
well, no, I
retreat.
thought it was. We all took like a survey. Now I don't know what changed. Granted, I'm a few years older than you, but when I remember, like all of the kids in 7th or 8th grade, I don't remember what grade I was in. We had a survey, and it was like write down a name of somebody that you would go to
if you had an issue.
And it was almost like it was basically a survey. And if your name popped up too many times, you got chosen. You were a natural helper.
But that was my point. It was almost kind of
But
like
it had to be
popularity
a
contest.
it had to be
Yeah.
a classmate.
Yes, and that's the thing.
Oh,
Who would talk
okay.
to? I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then if you tell them,
See,
they're
I
gonna tell
don't-
everybody else.
Well, it was. It
Yeah.
might have been a
I hadn't
popular.
even thought of
well,
that.
Yeah,
it was a popularity contest, but it was a popularity contest of somebody that had a good ear. It wasn't just that they were popular.
Right.
True.
It was,
true.
you know,
They were-
Theoretically.
theoretically.
But again, it kind of comes back to the fact is, you know, if I've got a problem, am I going to go tell this person who is friends with everybody in the school, and the next thing you know, everyone in school knows about my problem? And I think it's a good thing to encourage kids to talk to each other and air their issues.
There was
but-
some training involved in
yeah,
that. Well,
but-
training. But I'm pretty sure at the top of the list was don't go gossiping everything somebody tells you.
But at the end of the day, I mean, it kind of comes back to that was about the extent of what I remember there being.
Yes, there wasn't.
Yeah.
There wasn't much out there, and I don't know what there is today necessarily. Exactly.
There's a lot more than you think.
Okay.
Like
There was Ashley's with Mending Minds.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
another, I think, in the same office that works with her. I'm not sure.
we have other
There's
therapists
a
locally, too.
few. I can't remember. She gave me a list, but I can't remember what they were. But I know I put it in the description, the show notes on YouTube and
right.
on our post on OCMonitor.com. But
We have River Valley. I mean, that's a big resource. for
That's
local.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
been there a long time. But again,
Yeah,
that
they've been
doesn't
there.
pop in my mind
But-
if
but
I
I
was
mean-
thinking about something.
You know, and I've told people this. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and I've had issues before that I've had to have a therapist to work things
Mm-hmm.
out with, and I think all of us, you know, would acknowledge that we've had issues where we need someone to sit there and
Yes.
talk to us, and sometimes you need more than just a therapist. Sometimes you also need some medication to go along with it, or
Mm-hmm.
or you need medication and maybe
Right.
But it always seems strange to me, especially like if you have private insurance. A lot of times mental health is, if it's covered at all, it's super expensive even with insurance. And it's a stigma where nobody wants to talk about it. It's like, oh, well, you know, we're going to keep this secret and you're not going to tell anybody you have a problem. And the next thing you know is somebody you think has their entire life together, you're hearing like, well, so-and-so took their life. I mean, and that's terrifying to think that you would get to that point where you don't feel like you have any other recourse but to kill yourself.
Right.
But what even happens sometimes when you tell somebody, they think, "Oh gosh, you're crazy. I don't want anything to do with you." that happen a lot,
Well, I mean,
Or
and I
you
think
think they're going to
or
think
they
that.
think they're going to think that.
like I've been in situations where I've had, you know, I've had to be that person who goes and kind of does like an intervention or check on somebody,
Mm-hmm.
right, or do something, and you know, your first instinct is, man, they're going to be mad at me. Or
Yeah.
they're not going to like this. And you know, me being the person I am, I'm like, well, so what? You know, but
Right.
not everybody has that
No.
mentality. And that's hard, you know, especially if you've already got a limited friend set and you really do care about how people perceive you and everything, is you may not feel comfortable addressing these issues. And I think that's kind of where we're at, is how do we make more people more comfortable with this, or how do we encourage them and explain to them how important it is to check on them?
I like that one of the activities that they have as part of this walk is coping skills.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming they're still doing that. I know that things are changing a little bit given, events and what's happening, but I do hope that they're still going to do that. I think that's important for sure.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I'm on the committee. I kind of crashed the committee, honestly. But it was kind of the discussions that we have, like first meeting I went to. I didn't make the first meeting, but I went to the second meeting, which is kind of good because a lot of people at the first meeting didn't have time to make the second meeting. But kind of the thing that we got into was we had to establish that there is nothing different here that isn't happening anywhere else. We're the suicides that we've had here and things like that, it's the same everywhere. There was a time where we had a bit of a run, but we're actually below average for the last few years. But we had a discussion about young people, and it was sometimes people would bring up, oh, well, you're a young person, you don't have problems. I'll show you a problem. Like, well, no, you don't understand. Whenever you're this age, this is your problem.
That's right.
It's not, a big overarching, how am I going to survive life in general? How am I going to pay these bills? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? It's not that. But whatever the problem is for that teenager or that child at the time, that is their problem. That is their...
And that's all that they can focus on at the time. And I think that's... You made a comment earlier when you were talking about the documentary or the movie about the girl who was the subject of the serial rapist.
Unbelievable.
And all the other victims and how they were each dealing with it in a different way. It's the same thing with mental health issues. It's the same way with grief. Everybody grieves differently. Everybody, processes things differently. And just because they may not do it the way that you feel is appropriate doesn't make their grief or the way that they're going through things or processing things any different, any less severe.
And ultimately, that was the crux of the show, is the way that the investigating officers were looking at each individual case. They were going by how they were, and that's kind of what you're trained to do. Yeah. How are they reacting? And there is no textbook as to how someone reacts to trauma. It just, some people can move on, block it out, whatever. It might come up later on, but, but in the case of the first girl, the Caitlin Devers character, there was just a certain point where she just wanted to be out of that situation and not have to think about it, not have to talk about it anymore. And it worked against her because she had a fight or flight episode, and she wanted to fly. She wanted to be out of it. So she just said whatever she had to say to get out of that room. She wanted to go home. That's all she wanted to do. And so that's what really set that off. And that was the thing. Just like you said, no one, we don't know how anybody's going to deal with anything. Yeah. We're creatures, I've always said, we're creatures of experience. And we all like to think, oh, well, I grew up with them, so they, we're not too different. It's like, well, you don't know what your next door neighbor's life is really like. You know what it's like when you're around them, but you haven't the slightest idea what they've gone through in their life. You just don't know. And that's kind of the big, again, that's what we went back to when we were talking about it at the committee meeting. Regardless of whether or not you think that teenager's problem is a big deal in your world, in their world, it's the biggest deal. It's the only deal. So,
And instead of making light of it, you just need to figure out how to make it better for them and help them get through it in a way that is not detrimental and doesn't lead to a serious consequence. And that's why I commend our fiscal court for doing this, for creating this committee. I hope that it does open up more resources or at least makes more awareness about the issues.
That was the thing that we really discussed was there is no solution to this. It's like this committee was not created to solve this, this problem.
And some people think they are sometimes, and they get upset.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't solve
but it's
anything.
impossible. But
and they may ignore it again. Oh, we've got a committee for that now. That's fine.
The thing that we decided was the best thing that we can do is bring awareness and to
getting people to talk. That's
right.
And
to get people to talk about it, or because and I know this might not be the thing that people want to hear, but when something like this, when say a student at the high school passes away, takes their own life, there's a whole lot of let's not talk about this.
Yeah.
Because the idea is that it could potentially sensationalize it to the point where somebody's like, well, this person's getting a lot of attention. We're talking about it. And some think that will drive someone, another kid, to do it themselves. But my argument is it works both ways. You know, you might think that sensationalizing it might drive another one to potentially take their life, but it might drive someone to get help. Because you can't have one without the other.
Or when you only talk about the good things about that happened to this person and what a shame it was that they did this, and it is a shame that they would take their own lives. But I mean, instead of just that, you might say, well, you know, this is things that they struggled with, and if you're having the similar struggles, you need to know there are other options. And I think that kind of goes back to that is, you know, culturally, I think we've been hammered into us. We just don't talk about it. We don't want to talk about it.
We just keep going on.
Yeah,
Even in the 21st century, we still don't want to talk about stuff.
And I mean,
I don't
there's
think
so much.
parents talk about that kind of thing. I don't know what kind of talks your parents had with you growing up, but I don't ever recall. Well, you have certain things that you go over, but I don't think I've ever had one, or we don't think it needs to be happening. Hey, if something's bothering you that bad, we need to, you know, come to me and talk about it.
And
no parent wants to think that's going to be a problem, but it is.
And it's not only that. It's like if you have a kid that you don't think they're going to talk to you, if you're a parent and you don't think that you can, you know, get your child to open up, find somebody who will. Don't be afraid to ask someone else to step in, a preacher or a friend or a teacher or, you know, a therapist. Force them somewhere. You know, let them be mad at you. It's okay. Let a friend be mad at you for making a call. You know, I think that's where we're at now is we're so concerned with overstepping.
And upsetting somebody else, knowing the alternative is that person could disappear.
Right. And that's never worth it.
Right.
No.
Well, there have been instances in, you know, covering news for as long as I have for Ohio County where there's a certain point where every now and again somebody would come into the office and they were mad as all get out. I remember a particular story where guy came in, he was super mad, and it was something that he had no control over, and quite literally we just stood there and got yelled at, and by the time it was over, you know, he shook her hand like, you know, I'm sorry that I did that. We're like, hey, sometimes you just got to yell at people. And that's what we did.
Imagine being a customer service representative.
Yeah, I mean, that was the particular situation. The guy came in and things were going bad, but it was something that he had no control over. He was just a victim of circumstance. And at the end of it, he was like, I'm sorry that I just did this. And we're like, hey, it was a bad situation. There was
a time I was at the post office. I was super impressed by this. A customer came in upset about whatever. And the head, you know, the postmaster went in there and he said, well, he had a pen and paper in his hand. He said, tell me what I can do to help you out with this. And once he saw the guy was actually, you know, willing to listen to him, and it changed the guy's whole. Yeah.
But
I think we kind of came full circle. We kind of took our conversation.
This has
back
also been like an hour, so
we
may need to wrap it up.
We'll let people take a break, and hopefully we can do it again. I think this has been fun.
Yeah, I think it is too.
We'll do the follow us on social media at Main and Local Pod. We need to say that more.
Yeah.
It just dawned on me that there might be people that listen to this audio. So we might need to say at Main and Local Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Main and Local Pod at Podbean.
Yeah, Main and Local Pod.
And on Apple Podcasts.
Podbean.com. Yeah, you can find it on Apple Podcasts. I've been trying to get it on Google, but Google was a little weird. Apple was, hey, you're in, you know, so.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, especially an episode like this, it'd be great to download, listen to while you mow, while you drive, you know, do something
and
like that.
And let us know again what you think about all of these topics we've talked about.
Absolutely.
You may generate another show out of this.
Right. We want to know what you're thinking is. Maybe we can invite you on to sit
you want to hang out with us.
Here. We'll hash out
we're
going to
need
problems.
more microphones.
Have a round table with your family.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you want to advertise with Main and Local, let us know. Drop us a line. You know, we're always seeking sponsors and advertisers. We can work you up a nice little commercial. So. All right.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.